And welcome back to another episode of Project Stargate Friends Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner.
And I'm the co-host, She the Medium.
All right, and today we got an exciting episode for you. We have a special guest coming up here in just a little while. His name is Jared Palmer, and we'll get into that. Tell you a little bit more about him here in a few moments. But before we get into all that, I'd like to catch up with you, She. How's everything going with your channel and everything? Get us up to speed.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Mark, for having me tonight. I appreciate coming on the show and being able to co-host with you. It's a pleasure. And so basically, I've just been adding to my astral travels, my odd documenting of my astral travels, really just trying to get everything out while I can still remember it vividly. So I posted 2 new videos, and they're kind of connected. One is titled, well, the thumbnail is titled, I Thought I Was in Hawaii. And then the other one was just a quote, but it's the temple was tantalizingly flirtatious. And so those 2 videos go together because they involve a celebrity, or 2 celebrities actually, one in each video. So that's pretty much all I've done. I also did a video talking about my high blood pressure and how I resolved that through holistic means. And so, yes, that's about it.
Wow. I tell you what, I have to hand it to you, She. I've had some incredible people as guests and guest co-hosts, for that matter, on my show, but you're one of the most amazing people I've ever had. Your range of knowledge, research, and experience on both the medical profession and these intriguing subjects of high strangeness. There's never a dull moment with you, and I really cherish every chance I get a chance to talk to you about things and research, and I've really found our friendship valuable, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me and embracing me and giving me a platform to be completely transparent. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jake, and just for all the listeners and viewers, Jake and Greg are both having to work late. They've had some crazy stuff going at work, and they regret not being here. But Jake will be, and Greg will definitely be with us next week. At least Jake will. Greg has got some research project and some other things he's working on, but he'll be back with us very soon. He's just taking a very short hiatus. But anyway, this has been a very, very interesting week. I had my meeting with MUFON, my BrewFO meeting with some of my local MUFON members, and just had a very interesting meeting with them, talking about disclosure and some exopolitics, as well as some other intriguing subjects. I want to ask you this:
Wow.
where do you think that this stuff with the USS Nimitz, the encounters with the Navy personnel, both on the East and West Coast, what do you think? Do you think this is the first major step in disclosure? What's your feelings on that?
So I'm not that familiar with it, but normally I find that when activity is ramped up, it's either part of a bigger agenda. Because the thing is, disclosure is like, I mean, technically they've been disclosing, they've been leaking information, and then some of it has been false information leaked with truth. So there's got to be something behind it. Anytime they are amplifying these events, especially in the media, there's something underlining there. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out with both situations.
I agree.
What's your take?
So this is my take, and I appreciate you asking me that return question, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I've just been jumbling these thoughts in my mind. I think that what's going on, there's the Freedom of Information Act, and at some point, declassified information, once it's no longer a national security issue at any degree, they're really supposed to declassify it. So the loophole for the U.S. government is the following: if they privatize it, if they outsource let's say we had a crash UFO, and it happened 30 years ago. I'm just using this as an example. Well, the way
Mhm.
the U.S. government could get around FOIA requests on that is to outsource the work on it to a private company. At that point, the FOIA or Freedom of Information Act is no longer applicable because it's a private company.
Right.
Uh,
Mhm.
Places like uh, that place, what's that place called? Dugway Proving Grounds. That's a good example. That's what that is there's a bunch of companies that have research facilities and whatnot over there. People nicknamed it Area 52. I just like to call it Dugway Proving Ground. I think, but at any
Mhm.
rate, that's what I think is going on. I think that company, Bigelow Aerospace. We all know Bob Bigelow is interested in UFOs. As a matter of fact, when I saw him on Joe Rogan, an interview with Bob Bigelow, Joe was asking him flat up. He's like, "Man, uh, what is your interest in UFOs?" And he went into this long, fascinating spiel about how he actually had some encounters when him and his family has had encounters with various different types of close encounters of the first, second, third, and maybe even fourth kind. So
Wow.
there's people in the I think that a lot of what we're going to see is people like Elon Musk, people like Bob Bigelow. I think they're going to have a big say in propelling us into the future with technology.
I agree. Absolutely.
Very,
Absolutely.
very
And
interesting
Musk,
people.
yeah, and Musk is doing a. I mean, he's doing a good job spearheading it now, and so the closer we get to these other projects that he's been working on, the more interesting it's going to be because we see the incorporation of AI, and then the space trips and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. But anyway, moving on. Well, tonight, our guest is Jared Palmer. I want to talk a little bit about Jared Palmer, and then we'll bring him on. Jared Palmer he's an actor. Um, he's been in quite a bit of roles. He's done. We're gonna kind of get into some more details on that. I want to let him talk about what he's done before we get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation. He's been acting for around 20 years. He's also he also loves voice acting. But we didn't just bring him on though to talk about acting. Tonight he's going to take us on a wild ride to the edge of reality. We're going to talk about some various different types of paranormal experiences, including possible missing time and close encounter experiences that he's had throughout his whole life. And I'm really, really excited about this guest. I've been really looking forward to interviewing him. He's a very nice guy, and I'm just excited and pumped that he's fixing to come on the program.
Me too. I'm so interested, so very interested.
Well, instead of talking about him, why don't we just go ahead and bring him on? Uh, Jared, thank you so much, sir, for being with us, and welcome to Project Stargate.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you both so much for having me. I keep forgetting. I'll try to remember the delay, but
You're you're doing just fine, my brother. Jared, we're about to go on a wild ride to the edge of reality, and I'm ready to bring on the spooky woo. But before we get into all that, tell us a little bit about your background, and I want to hear all about this acting stuff. You got me really intrigued.
Me too.
well, as you said before I came on, I have about 20 years experience on screen. A little bit of theater, not so much. My first role ever was in The Sandlot, which I didn't know at the time that it was going to become some kind of a American cult classic at all, but that's where my career started off. And then I was in one called This Boy's Life with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. And then after that, I did a bunch of ads, like Kmart ads and Toys R Us commercials and stuff like that as a child. After that, in my adolescent to young adult years, I decided I wanted to be a rapper. And so I have that under my belt for about a good 10 or 15 years until I got to be about 20 or 21 years old and decided I wanted to go back to acting. And since then, I've been doing pretty well at it. Honestly, Utah's the place you want to be, if not Hollywood itself right now. There's a lot of Hallmark movies. I've got contracts with Discovery Channel, Disney, Fox, etc. It's going pretty well so far. The voice acting I just recently got into. I do a lot of a lot of comic book fans will make animations of their own, and I voice over a lot of comic fan films.
Wow.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Holy crap, man. That's so cool. You know, Jared, my mom is probably one of your number one fans because she is a Hallmark Channel junkie. When I tell my mother about this, she's going to flip. She loves the Christmas, especially the Christmas movies and TV shows that they do. She can watch Hallmark Channel to the. Do you like Hallmark Channel, she?
Oh, I do. It's addictive.
I had you pegged. I had you pegged.
Yeah, if you're watching any of the marathons, I mean, you're just, and the talent that they have over there, like Natasha Henstridge, and I'm gonna have to look for you, Mr. Palmer, because I'll be interested. And also this rap background, I'd like to hear more about that as well.
Too.
If you dropped any albums, made any videos.
The rap background was a good 10 to 15 years. I did a lot of live shows. Mainly my biggest attributes, I guess. My most notable, I guess, jobs in the rap world were opening for touring artists such as, Tech Nine, St. Clown Posse.
Oh man, ICP!
Nice.
I'm a juggalo.
Nice.
This whole music scene locally is kind of ran by juggalos, and so it's all love, I guess, but it's been a wild ride. And so I mean, I could link you guys to some of my music and stuff. I still put out like a song or two every year or so, just to show people I can still do it, I guess.
Nice.
He's really living the American dream, she. That's incredible, man. I don't know many people that can say that they've had this incredible type of experience like he has. But there's much more to than his career and entertainment industry. Jared has in fact had many years of high strangeness. And Jared, why don't you walk us through, start from the beginning, take your time, bring back all the details you can remember that you feel comfortable talking about. Tell us what happened. When did this all start? When did you start having paranormal experiences?
All right. Where do you start? Okay. So there are certain memories that I have, and then later on in life you start to realize other memories that you have are like linked in. You know what I mean? It's all part of the same story, and so it becomes earlier and earlier in life. However, this is where I'll start. When I was a kid, before I came on, I heard you guys talking about the Dugway Proving Grounds, which was interesting. So this is where I'll start, actually. Where I live is called Ogden, Utah. And Ogden is, I'd say, about 10 or 15 miles, if that, not even that, away from what's called Hill Air Force Base. Hill Air Force Base is one of the largest Air Force bases in the USA. Ogden, Utah, originally, the official story you'll get on Ogden is that it was built for the trains because we had the meeting of the Golden Spike near us and the driving of the rails which joined the Union and the Pacific Railroads to make the Union Pacific Railroad. Anyhow, before that, what this place was for, there's a place right, not even a mile as the crow flies from where I live, called the BDO, the Business Depot of Ogden, which was originally called the Weapons Depot of Ogden. And so originally they built tanks, warheads, etc. for Hill Air Force Base. And still to this day, they ship out on trains many tanks and war vehicles that they are producing. But as officially reported, they don't produce weapons or bombs anymore. That's where I'll start. Okay, so with that, when I was a kid, I remember in school having bomb drills and radiation drills and stuff like that, which if I talk to anybody else who did not live here, is absurd as hell. nobody had like these radiation and bomb drills. That's stuff from the 50s. I didn't grow up. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and so. Okay, so we'd have those drills, and I remember that specifically. Every school here has a plaque on the door out front that tells you that there is a radiation bunker underneath this school. I was attending, yeah. So yeah, everywhere you go, it's absurd. There are still alarms, horns on most major street corners here for war, obviously. What am I trying to say? I don't know what they're officially called. Anyway, they look like loudspeakers, but they're on every corner, and they're basically radiation detectors, is what I'm getting, or bomb detectors, stuff like that. So I was attending a elementary school called, at the time it was called Carl H. Taylor Elementary. Now it's just called Taylor, where also we filmed This Boy's Life with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. Good film, check it out.
Cool, I will.
Yeah, and so that's how I got into that film, was because I actually went to school. Anyway,
I want your autograph, by the way. Can I have your autograph?
You got it. I don't know if it'll be worth much, but it maybe one day, hopefully. Anyhow, here we go. So, Carl H. Taylor Elementary. When I was a child, listen to this, I was an obese kid. And this is only important to the story because I was kind of picked on at the time. I'm not going to say that I was bullied a lot because it only happened for a very short spell, because I became a very angry child after a while and started fighting back, and then I became the bully, which was also terrible. Anyway, we'll get into that. Here we go. Carl H. Taylor Elementary School. I'm getting chased around by these kids for a good couple of weeks. The janitor who works there, his name is Mr. Salazar. And so he kind of takes me under his wing and feels pity for me and has me helping him, like, wash the tables after lunch and stuff like that. And he's rewarding me with, like, I don't know, gift certificates to, like, freaking Toys R Us or whatever the hell, and at the time, you know what I mean? Which was cool or whatever. Anyway, so check this out. They allowed the children to run a candy store after school where you go and pay like 5 or 10 cents for an Airhead or some kind of piece of candy. Where they let them do the after-school store looked like a closet, but was actually the top of a staircase to a bunker underneath the school. And so the only reason the only reason I found that out was because I was running from these kids. Okay, they were picking on me because I was obese, I was fat, whatever. Fat, red-headed kid. I was all the targets, I swear to God. And so running from these kids, run into where the candy little store was going to be, because I figured it was a closet I could hide in there. I find out it's a staircase. I run down the stairs, and immediately in the beginning of the little bunker area there, I remember our showers, right? Like on both sides of the wall, lined, and come to find out later, they're probably chemical showers or disinfectant showers of some type or another, but they look like prison showers. And the reason I know that is because I've been to jail and prison, and we'll get into that also. Anyhow, here we go. So I remember going into there and blacking out. And then this was the first blackout that I could ever recall having. But after this, continuously, reported even, I would black out and come to in places where I don't remember blacking out. So I remember this time blacking out in that, in the little shower bunker area, because I was terrified, apparently. And when I came to, I was outside of a grocery store, which was kind of down like 6 to 10 blocks down the street from this school called Albertsons, which doesn't exist here anymore, but it's still a store. But right, I woke up on the rocks, like the little decorative little pebble area with next to the plants and stuff like that. Woke up right there, and it was like, I don't know, right before summer break, so it was blazing hot outside, and I remember waking up and going into the store and literally not remembering who I was, where I was, etc., but remembering my aunt's phone number, who lived close by, who came to pick me up, and then that was the first time I had ever blacked out. But after that, there was a series of blackouts going on. So that's where I'll begin that. However, during that, or previous to that, there is, at the time, what was called the fluoride program. in school. And so at the time, as a kid, you just think all the kids in the fluoride program are just randomly selected or something like that. Here's what else I have found out, because I've spoken to these children. Ogden is not a big place. It's getting bigger, but it's not a big place. You'll go to school with the same kid your whole life, even if you change schools. You see what I mean? And so I asked these kids who are now adults, do you remember the fluoride program? And they say yes. And each one of them, I go, do you remember the men in black coming and giving us personality and IQ tests, but only to the children in the fluoride program?
Wow.
And every single one of them are like, oh my God, I thought that was a dream. I forgot about that, etc., etc., etc. So, flash forward here. Yeah, so, okay. So, flash forward just not even a year after the fluoride program. So, here's what else I had noticed is every one of the children in the fluoride program were below income. And also each one of us ended up having relatives who were in the military locally, and all of the local military is going to end up being the Air Force. So here is where this comes in. My grandfather, pardon me, hydrate or dihydrate. My grandfather, James Palmer, the Challenger shuttle that exploded. This is one of my first.
I'll never forget that day. I was 6 years old when that thing blew up, and I saw it on live TV.
It was like it was directly before or after my birthday. I'm not really good with dates at the moment, but that's why I remember it supposedly being one of my first memories. But I don't know if I was told about it so much that I remember it, or if I actually remember being there because I was, I'm so young, stuff like that. Anyhow, my grandfather, James Townsend Palmer, originally just some farmer who happened to go to the Navy in his younger years, and then ended up owning a lot of property in Bear River, Utah, Tremont in Utah. And one day Thykal comes in, subsidiary of NASA, comes in and tells him, we know about your training in the military. He was already retired from the military this time, but we know about your training in the Navy, and we'd like you to come and help us build rockets and spaceships and stuff like that for NASA. And so he does, and he ends up being head of whatever the team was called that built gaskets for the Challenger shuttle. And so the day of the launch, my grandfather and his team actually they were the ones who called where it was being launched and told them, like, do not let these shuttles go off, because the gaskets that they had developed here in Utah, in a whole different climate, like the humidity and everything is different. The launch was in Florida or wherever it was at, and it was completely different climate. And they were trying to tell them these gaskets are going to break, and this shuttle's going to explode no matter what. And they completely were just like, whatever, we got to get this thing going.
Wow.
Shot it off into space, and we all know the rest of that.
Well, yeah, what a tragedy. Just an awful tragedy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
So I start having these blackouts in my younger years, and I start having nightmares. Not just nightmares. The most insanely terrible, sleepwalking, lucid, whatever you want to call it, realistic nightmares you've ever had in your life. And to this day, it has never ended. But I've learned how to manipulate or control it in some form of a way where I can deal with it honestly, and I can actually sleep. Do you know what I mean? So at the time, I didn't know what sleep deprivation was, and so I start having these dreams of being dreams or visions of being taken from we lived in an apartment building, and we lived on the bottom floor, of being taken out of our apartment building and taken to several different hospitals that in real life don't exist, either don't anymore or just never did. And so there's this place here, and it's again not even a few miles from where I live. And at the time, as a child, they were using it for what was called Astral Camp, and it turned into the blind and deaf school and it's just a large piece of property with several old buildings on it that now is just used for the city's storage and whatever the hell they do with city stuff, I guess, and trucks and all that bull crap. So I'm trying not to swear on your show, but I'm getting really excited, so I might
It's okay.
Okay, I might let an F-bomb slip or two, but I apologize in advance. However, so at the time, every school in the area started going to just on field trips. Everybody had been to Astral Camp. I had these visions where I would start waking up in Astral Camp, and I would tell my mother about it. Like, did that used to be a hospital? What the hell was this place? And so finally, I researched into it, and it used to be part of St. Benedict's Hospital, but St. Benedict's is up on the hill, and this place was miles away because it was used as a sanitarium.
Whoa, hold on a second. So basically, what it sound? Are you? So what you're saying, just for me and she and the listeners, you had some kind of did you have a dream? Was this a precognitive dream of something that happened in the future, or was this something? Was this like a clairvoyant type experience where you're seeing things that happened in other areas of time and space? What do you think it is?
So, okay. At the time, I did not understand any of it. So now all of it ties together in dreams, visions, all of this. I still get insomnia for days at a time and think that I see things, and so that's hard to decipher as well. However, what I have boiled it all down to is I am either dreaming of, and it's a place. I got to explain it like this. My dreams aren't just random events. It's an ongoing story, and it has been forever. Once I learned how to, not necessarily, I didn't just one day go, I'm controlling my dreams, and I started doing it. Like over time, I've learned how to like actually speak to the people in my dreams, and I go to places that are either here, and it's like just a really fucked up dream world because everything is just post-apocalyptic, derelict, dystopian, however you want to explain it, but somewhat society is still going on. However, anyway, it links all in because these dreams that I'm having are these places, but what I find that they're not being used as what they are in my dream, but they were at one point. And I will dream about, because my town is not that big. It really is not. I can see everything. Like, I could walk across this whole fucking place in like 45 minutes. Do you get what I'm saying? And so I could see everything in my dreams. And anyway, I say all that to say this. So that was a sanitarium. That was a hospital at one point. And so I will dream about them tearing. Okay, there's this bridge here called the Viaduct. It's the biggest bridge here. It's on 24th Street. It connects West Ogden to Main Ogden. I used to have dreams that it was made of wood, and then after it was made of wood, that there was a train that would go on it. So come to find out, Ogden had a trolley, just the regular little first electric trolleys that would run on every street and would go across that bridge, And so I don't know if I'm walking through another dimension or if I'm just dreaming about this place and assuming these things and putting it together because I'm somewhat kind of a genius or something like that, and common sense is just drilled in there, and it's like, oh, obviously this is what it used to be or will be, or if I'm actually predicting things, or if I actually have been there, if that makes any sense.
So this is kind of in your territory a little bit. Do you think he's having lucid dreams? Do you think he's doing some astral travel? What do you think's going on? I'll kind of hand it off to you for a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So Jared, when you described it as post-apocalyptic, I mean that's whenever I travel, generally that's what I'm dealing with too, and I find that it's traveling and not dreams because, like you said, it's a continuation. Like I go to the same place that's in my home city, which is they also had a sanitarium there as well. It's a historic area in the Hudson Valley, and there's this point underneath one of the bridges. There's two bridges in the city, and in dream time, when I'm astral traveling, I go into the street that parallels that, and I end up in this other dimension where I'm astral traveling. And then when I go there, everything is the same, or it's a continuation. Like I'm familiar with my apartment there. I'm familiar with the people there. And but when you said post-apocalyptic, it reminded me of a lot of my travels in the 90s. I did a lot of astral traveling in the 90s. And now it happens sparingly, but when I do travel, it's to that same place that I access through the portal in my home city. So yeah, that's what it sounds very familiar, especially that post-apocalyptic piece.
Wow. I have a question. I have
Wow.
a question, and
Wow.
maybe both of y'all could answer this. How can you tell a difference if you're lucid dreaming or you're astral traveling? If you're having an out of body experience, I'd like to ask both of you your opinion on that.
I'll let you go first, Jared.
I'd like to know because this is the I have goosebumps right now because there's only been a few people that I can ever explain. I sound like a raving lunatic most of the time because please, I want to hear you. That's what I'm trying to say. I want to hear what you have to say, She. Please, please. I don't have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll tell you based on my experience. I also have a connection to an Air Force base where I was a part of a group abduction with other children. And when you said astral camp, when you said that term, I was like, oh my God, is that what I was in? Because whenever they took me, and oftentimes when I went, it was with the same other children, like a group of 12 children. So, and Mark's heard me say this the first time when he interviewed me. I basically said I'm trying to reconnect with these other children if I can somehow magically find them. But
Yes!
so that was key for me when you said astro camp. That's one thing. Now, traveling in the 90s, I did a lot of. I mean, I've been in these underground bases with other children, sent in as astral spies. I've been to other worlds. I've been to a place that I identify as a area within the Sirius, in somewhere in the area that's known as Sirius.
That's very
I've
serious.
been many different places. Yeah, I've been many different places, and when I go, it's real. It's just real. And sometimes when you're there, you know that you're dreaming. You know that you're there in dream time. So you can distinguish that you're not dreaming, right? So that's the difference there. If you know you're someplace and the place is familiar and you have a real handle on the tangibility and the reality, like you can feel the true temperature of the air. You're just, that hypervigilance really just sets you apart from a dream. Oftentimes dreams you forget, after some time you forget. But when you astral travel, you never forget because you've been there, and because we can't really articulate our understanding of it so that we're able to reason with ourselves. Like we have to be able to process and reason what we just experienced. And when we can't do that, it's hard to make that distinction, right? So we'll just be like, oh, well, it's just a really the dream. But when you've gone there and the story has continued through the years, through the decades, I mean, it's definitely more than that. When you're going places and you see things that you're not really supposed to be seeing, when you go places and you know that you're in spirit form when everyone else that you're around that you're supposed to be surveilling is in the physical form. I mean, I've seen things in these bases. I've just seen things that you're not supposed to know exist, right? That you're not supposed to know is real. That only happened through, I was an astral spy. I was used during that time as an astral spy with other children. And I have a video in which I talk about it as being, or I refer to myself as being an agency child, where we're essentially used in these different realities for different things. So the 90s, I spent a lot of time traveling, and so there's definitely, you'll know the difference when it happens to you. It's something you never forget. You forget the details of it. It just doesn't vibe like a dream. Dreams eventually you'll forget unless it's related to trauma. Sometimes you have dreams of a parent being sick or dying or somebody dying and you wake up crying, right? And most of the time that doesn't happen, but some people have those dreams and it does happen, right? But then you forget, you forget, but you just don't forget these travel experiences. So a lucid dream and astral traveling and dreaming, lucid dreaming is, or the fact of it being lucid is indicative that it's more than a dream to me. That's just how I interpret it. So that's just part of astral traveling. Now, for some people may, interpret that differently, but for me, that's just part of astral traveling, because it's really, really lucid. Like, I've been to worlds right now, and I can describe everything to a T, and I haven't been there since the 90s. That's not normal. You know what I mean? That's not a dream. So anyway.
Jared, can you resonate with what
what
she just said? Do you resonate with that explanation?
Like, yeah, I'm trying not to cry right now because it feels like I've been saying this exact stuff to people my entire life, and like nobody understands it except for like okay, the children in the underground, the group of 12 is what I'm kind of tripping on now because yes, anyway, but yeah, short answer, yes. Please keep going.
Wow, this is a great connection here. This is what good research is all about. This is why I do Project Stargate. What we're doing right now is, I can't think of a more beautiful example of what this program's all about. Jared, let me ask you this: moving forward, do you think so? I want to, as I guess, as a bottom line, do you think that you feel like you may have been part of some sort of special access program ran by a 3-letter agency or something else? Do you think that's what happened, and where they may have developed your abilities, like in Project Stargate, for example, the secret special access program my show is named after? Do you think that something like that happened?
Jesus Christ. Yes. Oh my God. Listen to this. So that was exactly what I was going to tell you guys next. So because I'm starting to have these weird ass dreams as a kid, I have this insomnia that won't stop, and I start hearing voices and seeing shit, right? And as a child, my mother can't deal with me because I am also really high strung when I get insomnia. I don't like slug around like a sloth. I'm actually bouncing off the walls for some damn reason. It has like the opposite effect on me. And so she literally cannot handle me anymore. And the story goes like this. We were, Jesus Christ. We were living in another place. We moved around every 6 months when I was a kid, at least. And so we were living, again, not even 5 miles from where I stand right now, in a house next to a couple of houses that were just being built. There was a church across the street, large, really old Gothic-looking style building, which this whole town is filled with, which is really strange for how small it is and the Western background of it, if that makes any sense. So the church at the time housed the religion called the Rosicrucians. And I remember distinctly everybody in the neighborhood not liking it because this is a Mormon place, don't you know? It's LDS everywhere. And so I won't knock the LDS, and I will never say anything bad about it just because it is a religion and people have their own faith and everything. But they do a lot to push other religions out of the town if they disagree with them or anything like that. Anyway, so at the time, I remember everybody in the neighborhood trying desperately to get this church out and get an LDS church in because everybody there is LDS, minus the people who were going to this Rosicrucian church. And so we were having some kind of an event in the backyard of our neighbor's house, my mother's friend. And the smell of apricots in the summer is the most distinct, nostalgic, disgusting, beautiful smell I could ever think of because it all ties into this. It was a hot summer day, and had one of my blackouts, and a story goes like this. I was trapped in the basement of the house down the street that was just being built for 2 or 3 days until the Rosicrucians from the church that everybody hated came and found me in the basement and helped me get out. And so I didn't black out in the basement. I blacked out at the house that we were having the event at. And so went back to the event, or went back to our house event after the event had been over, and now they're having their little search party and everything. And I'm bouncing off the walls trying to tell everybody about these dreams that I had while I was blacked out, my normal little routine. And my mother can't handle it, and so right then and there she tells me, we're gonna go talk to the bishop and see basically what the fuck is wrong with you. And so we go and talk to LDS Mormon bishop, and he does, I guess, their version of an exorcism on me and all this other stuff. And I talk to their version of a therapist, counselor, whatever. It's called the Young Men's Counselor or whatever the hell it's called at the time. And so they are convinced that I have some kind of demon or devil inside of me or what have you. But they don't do the Catholic version of exorcism or any of that. So I'm getting baptized and blessed, and they're coming to my house all the time, and this and that and the other. And that just makes these insomniatic flip outs increase for some reason.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. And I have a thought on that when you're finished with this story.
Okay, so it's kind of a long story. I'll try and get to it. So
take your time. Just take your time, Jared.
Everything like that. I used to have the worst nightmares, actually, on top of this, of my mom meeting in the living room with these people, and just the impression of it, and just some kind of cultish vibe, and just didn't like it at the time. Still don't, but my mom was trying to do the best by me. Anyway, Bishop tells her, recommends to her, there's this very special program which is ran by the military, which is called the BHI, the Behavioral Health Institute, and we'd like to put your son in this BHI. And I remember going there for the first time for about a year and a half, and that is where I learned what sensory deprivation tanks were, and what light sensory testing was, where they, the ping pong balls cut in half and flash the different lights in your eyes, and just all under the ruse, under the guise of trying to cure my insomnia or what have you. And so, thus began my relationship with the three-letter organization that had all of the kids, most of the kids that I could contact under the fluoride program, ended up being associated with. Question.
Wow, this is a synchronicity. This is a synchronicity in the sense that he's had very similar experiences that you have had, and vice versa. I find this astounding, and I didn't put put those things together. I promise you, I didn't before we did this podcast.
Yeah, and I didn't sense anything before coming other than being excited to talk to Jared. Now, Jared, you said something about there was a behavioral issue that they wanted to resolve, right? Something like that. That was the whole purpose.
Right.
My brother, he's hyperactive, or so they said, but I think he was just a victim of trauma. They also said he was hyperactive and all this stuff, right? So one day they took us to me and him only, to the doctors, quote unquote doctors. It was this flat house, like a single ranch style house on a slight hill in the town of the city that I'm from. We go there, and it looks like a normal lobby. Because a lot of doctors in this area they work out of their home, or they're working in a house that looks like a residential home. While underneath this home was an open facility, was an open base, literally. I mean, there were military vehicles down there, and such. And when we went there, we were separated. He's older than me, but me and him have always been connected, and but we don't really get along at all. We're like night and day. And I think what they did was I think that they were using aspects of him, maybe his trauma and what may have been related to his trauma, and tried to weaponize it, because he has been in and out of, he's been incarcerated and getting away with things that he shouldn't get away with, and having these expensive lawyers just take care of him,
milking the system.
He didn't have the money for these lawyers. Yeah, I think they were using him And then I have a cousin that when I was in Germany, I had a conversation with my cousin about, he was telling me some of the things that they were into. And when we got to certain subjects, he just froze up. Like he wouldn't talk, and then he got off the phone. He said there's something up with your brother, and he was getting away with things that, he must work for the government or something like that. Like he alluded to that. And this was like back in 2013. So when I spoke to him again a couple of years ago, back in I think 2020, he still wouldn't talk about it. Like whatever it was he saw or they experienced or my brother was involved with, he was not comfortable having that discussion. And so I think that that's what they do to certain kids. I think that they, because I'm pretty sure that this is the case with my brother. So
Wow.
anyway, I just wanted to say that. That it just, it seemed key.
We need to have Niara Isley back on, by the way. We need to have, we should meet and you should do another episode in the future and have Niara come back on. You guys could, the two of you could talk for hours.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so Jared, I just don't want you to feel alone. I'm glad you don't feel alone anymore in certain aspects with that. But I find your experiences very curious, and I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you.
It's an honor and a pleasure, actually. I thank you for being the first person who makes this make sense. God, I'm kind of speechless a little bit. I wanted to touch a little bit on what you said about the criminal activity. So I'm not, I don't want to jump ahead of the story here, but real quick. So when I was younger, in my adolescent days, my juvenile days, I did get incarcerated quite a bit, but that was when I was being defiant, if that makes any damn sense. Like, if I say all that to say this. Now, I don't have a driver's license. I will never be allowed to have one. I stole a cop car, so my license has been suspended indefinitely. All of the police locally know me. They know I've been to prison. They know all of this stuff. They keep tabs on everybody around here. Like I said, it's not that big of a place. When I get pulled over, they know my name. They know that I don't have a license. They know I should not be operating a vehicle at all. Nowadays, they let me go left and right all of the time. And it's just interesting to me, because if this were even 5-10 years ago, I would have been right back in prison no matter what, left and right. It's just really weird, because now I just tell them the truth and I just act stupid, and they let me go every time. It's just really weird, because I'll get into it, but I used to run this quote unquote rap group that was considered locally as a gang or a cult, and we were called Black Shirt, which didn't help the fact that they thought that we were a gang or a cult, because it sounds pretty gang-like or cultish. And so I used to get pulled over nonstop, asking questions about Black Shirt all of the time, and asking if I was some kind of a gang leader or a cult leader, because we were wildly successful locally, but nobody could figure out what the hell we were doing, and did not believe that the popularity and success and everything that we had was strictly from doing rap shows. And so it was really weird, because right after these investigations happened, 4 people who were like the main people in my business and my rap crew died. All at once. All at once.
Wow.
And it just
Go ahead, I'm gonna let you take this one. I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, just curious as to what the cause of death was.
So I have had a friend, my brother Christopher Cruz. He had breathing problems, but he had never had breathing problems harsh enough for him to actually die from them. But one day at work, he randomly dropped dead. And so that was him. Fortre, rest in peace, Fortre. He was my partner, actually, my direct. We performed together, recorded together, everything. He was on a camping trip, and the dune buggy flipped over randomly down the hill, and only he didn't make it out of the 3 that were out of the 4 that were in the dune buggy. The 3 other made it.
God bless him.
Wow.
My little sister was hit and killed as she was crossing the street.
Oh.
And they didn't arrest the man or question him at all. He's walking around. I see him all the time. He's walking around here.
I'm sorry for your losses.
I'm sorry, man. That's terrible.
I appreciate that. My heart. Thank you.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's and then the other female that we had who. This is just how we divided it. It's just really weird. We had ranks in it. There were kings and queens. So the other two queens that died, my sister, and then my oldest friend I ever had in my life, Vanessa Matson, supposedly overdosed on drugs, but she had never done drugs in her whole life.
Wow.
Hmm.
You know,
and this was all in a short period of time?
This was all within 6 months.
It sounds like something sinister is going on. I think this is a good point to stop and take a break.
Sure.
But when we come back,
Okay.
I want to talk more about this. And also, Jared, it's my understanding you've had some other really creepy UFO type stuff going on.
Oh yeah, actually, I wanted to go back and talk about stuff we already did.
Yeah.
Keep going. Either way, I'm good. Let's.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that as well. But let's go ahead and go to break, and when we come back, we'll talk about all that stuff. The sky's the limit tonight, folks. You're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and today we have with us our special guest, Jared Palmer, and I have with me my guest co-host, She the Medium, and we'll be back in just a moment. And hi, welcome back to Project Stargate Fringe Research, and we're back here with our special guest, Jared Palmer, and our guest co-host, She the Medium. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we went to break, and we were talking about some of your experiences dealing with this clandestine program that one of these three-letter agencies were running, and it turned out that both of you guys have a lot in common on that end, and I found that to be not only fascinating, but I'm very convinced it's an actual synchronicity at play here in some way. It's pretty interesting. But I want to let you. I'm going to hand it off to you and let you continue to get this conversation kicked back off if you don't mind.
Oh yes, sure. Thank you. And so Jared, let's get into your UFO experience. You know, your sightings. Do you have any vivid recall of being taken, and what was that like? Were you inside of a vehicle? Were there any precursors to you being taken? Like for me, and someone else that I met recently, there's this low grade hum that comes. That's how I knew as a kid that I was about to be taken. There's this humming sound, this like cyclical hum. So that's kind of what I wanted to see. Or ask you.
Absolutely. My first experience was after rewinding back to the fluoride program when I got first met what I believe was the Men in Black. And so the people who gave me the IQ program and the personality test, I remember were two gentlemen dressed in, I remember at the time thinking, why are they dressed like they're from the 50s? Because they had the whole hat and the suit and everything. And so I remember vividly them just being awkward as all get out, and them asking me just random stuff. I remember at the beginning of the conversation, they asked me to remember a book, a car, and a watch. And I remember that to this day. And I remember them asking me just, random IQ, personality test stuff. Rorschach test stands out for some reason. And also at the end, they were asking me how to operate a writing pen. And so I don't know why, but I thought that was so bizarre because it was just at the time that you could disguise that as a question of describe this object to me so I know you're not crazy as a personality test, but also it just seemed weird. It legitimately seemed like they did not know how to use this writing pen, and that's what stood out to me. So around that time, and interesting point to bring up here real quick, the place where they tested me was not in it was part of the school, but it was not where I go to school. But the whole testing and everything was part of the fluoride program and all of that. But so they tell my mom to take me to this place in back up to Bear River Tree Mountain, where my grandfather runs Thykol. And so there's this building there, which is an old library, which I've taken pictures of now and shown to people. And they go, oh my God, yeah, that's where I got tested. So my fiance, my girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, is one of the people who actually went through all of this stuff also as a child. So right after being tested by the Men in Black, the people who came to test me, was my first experience. So we were living in this house on 1046 22nd Street.
I'd love to talk to her sometime too. She'd be willing to talk about it.
Who's my girlfriend? Yeah, I'd love to get it.
Yeah.
Here actually, I'm looking over at her. She's in the room. She's kind of shy, but possibly one day. I love talking to her. She's actually experienced things with me, so that would be awesome.
Yeah, we can have a
wow.
conversation one day. And I'd like you to come back for it too when we do that. If we do that,
That'd be great.
anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please forgive me. Continue.
No, you're absolutely good. So where am I going with this? Okay, so we're living in this house, 1967 Eccles, and right before we moved to this other house on 1046 22nd Street. Anyway, in lieu of moving, we were told, craziest house ever. You go into the basement, and the bathroom is separated. The toilet is in one room, and the sink and the tub are in another room. However, the toilet, weirdly enough, is not like on the ground, the ground. It's up here, like above your head, kind of, and there's steps going up to it. It's the weirdest little bathroom you've ever seen. So the story went like this: the bathroom in the tub side, the tub was sealed off, and up. It was in the basement. You know, I think I've said this. And so up above the walls, there were all this unfinished parts of the wall where you could, you know, potentially shove stuff behind the drywall. There was like a gap up there, if that makes any sense. So at the top of the ceiling, there was this gap that was like six inches all over the basement. So the story goes that there was a man who was mentally disabled, and back in the 30s or 40s when this house was built, and they trapped him in the basement because they didn't know what to do with him, and he ended up dying in the basement. Now his ghost haunts the house, supposedly. This is how this story goes. So at the time, this is the story that we had in our heads, was that the house was haunted. And so weirdly enough, I'm in that basement, and I fall asleep one night, and I wake up, and I'm not in that basement anymore. I am in what looks like all silver steel operating room, and it's how do I explain it? So I'm in a chair, right, and I'm sitting, I guess, like how you would sit in a chair, but there's also this, as the shape of me sitting, this giant metal piece that holds me to the chair, but my arms are out like this, and it only goes up to like I don't know if you can see on the screen, I don't even know if you're watching that, up to like my chest area. Anyway, there's like this plate on my lap and my torso that pushes me into the chair, and so instantly I think, oh my God, this is not the first time I've been here. Okay, and I don't remember seeing beings that time, but I do remember seeing like equipment hanging from the ceiling by not chains, but it was like a silver corded, you know, the old pay phones, the cord that was on. Yeah, it was like that. They were hung down like that, and they were like, I don't know, that you could reach them and grab. Anyway, so that's what I remember from that. And I come to, listen to this. So I come to, and I'm in the backyard of our house. I'm not in the basement anymore. Come to in the backyard, run into the house, and run into me and my little sister shared a bedroom, okay? And so there was a window in the middle of the wall of the bedroom, and my bed was on one side, and her bed was on the other side. And I ran in, and I remember seeing this being. She was laying in bed. It was nighttime. It was like probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and there was this being leaning over my sister in her bed. And at the time, I remember thinking that it looked like, silly enough, the purple guy from the McDonald's commercials because he was a giant blob. You see what I mean?
So the Hamburglar came and got your sister.
Yeah, no. But it was Gromus, the giant purple blob, you know. But that it wasn't him. It was a dark being that was leaning over her after I had been abducted for the first time that I could remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's interesting.
So I have a quick question. So has your sister ever, like, or any other family members, have any of them ever, have you ever been able to correlate your experiences synced up with things that they've experienced?
Yes. So check this out. So growing up, we never talked about like aliens or anything. Everything was ghosts and devils and demons and angels and crap like that. So my mother has this famous story of she gave my older brother up for adoption. The legit story is because she was with a guy at the time who was abusing her and the child. But her official story to us and everybody that will listen is that a being came to her and ran around her room at warp speed in a circle around the room, screaming at her to get out and get the baby out of there and this and that and the other. And at the time, her telling us that it was a ghost. And nowadays, I did just weeks ago, I'm telling her about this podcast and I'm telling her about my experiences and how I believe that all the demons and the ghosts and the devils that you think that you've seen are probably aliens. Okay, so here's the first time ever. The first time ever that this was ever correlated legitimately was this. So after that first experience, me and my little sister were we lived in an apartment building behind this school called Lynn Elementary, where we both attended. Lynn Elementary is now torn down, and at the time, I remember in the school, that was where our fluoride program and everything happened, and all of that. And so, but that school is gone now. But these apartments were conjoining like the parking lot with the elementary school. Anyhow, in these apartments, we lived on the bottom floor, and on the very top floor were these kids that we used to play with who could not speak English. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory at all. I'm just saying it's a important part of the story. We are playing with these kids off and on for weeks. They're new to the neighborhood, this, that, and the other. We end up having a sleepover party with these children. And so they have a bunk bed in their room, and me and my little sister are on the bottom bunk, and these two kids are on the top bunk of the room. And so it's nighttime, we're all getting ready to go to bed. They turn off the lights, and in comes their older sister. And their older sister says, "Do you guys want to hear a story?" And one of the most terrifying stories I've ever heard, I can still recount it word for word. This girl, when they first came to this country, was driving down some road or freeway or highway, byway, what have you, with her girlfriend at night, and they hit a kid on a bike, and they thought that they killed him. But when they got out to inspect the boy's body, he was not dead, so they ended up bashing his head in with rocks and whatever to kill him, and drug him off to the side of the road and left him for dead. And now every time she looks in the mirror, she sees this boy's reflection instead of her own. Good. While she is telling this story, my little sister starts clawing at my arms, and she just starts screaming, like breathlessly screaming, "Turn on the lights, please, God, turn on the lights, turn on the lights." Wow. And so I finally look over at the girl telling the story. I hadn't been looking at her the whole time, terrifying story, I'm a kid. I finally look over at her, and I watched it happen. She didn't put on a mask. I watched it happen. Her face changed shape into at the time what I remember being a goat's or a ram's head, into the shape of a ram's, and I watched horns develop out of her head. Oh my God. I watched her eyes change shape and start glowing like not even colors that I could even describe to you. We run out of this house. Wow. That sounds diabolical. Exactly. So we jump up. We run out of we jump up. We start searching for anybody in the house. The two kids are up on the bed sleeping, but there is nobody else in this house. That girl who told us the story isn't even there. By the time we jump up and turn on the lights and everything. And so I grab my little sister and we run back down to our apartment, banging on the door. My mom's mad as hell, opens the door, lets us in. And that's what I remember from that anyhow. So this apartment that we were living in at the time, I do remember being taken out the window a couple of times and not knowing where I had ended up. I don't remember being anywhere, but I do remember being taken from the apartment through the window, through the door a few times. So this is the first time a family member ever recounted that. So because I'm having at the time such vividly messed up dreams, I just attribute that memory to these dreams for almost years. And so that was when I was like 7 and my little sister was probably 5. And so we go through our whole lives, and one night randomly, my little sister and my mom are drinking. When my sister was like 22 at the time, and she says, "Hey, do you remember that time we told you that we saw the devil and came into the house?" And like, I remember I had something in my hand, just dropped everything, and I was like, "Oh my God, I thought that was a dream my whole life." Jesus, like, and just had to ask her to recount all these things. So my little sister was admittedly one of the most, and you're not even gonna get what I'm saying by trying to describe her, one of the most eccentric, one of the most out there people. She had a few mental problems, but just besides that, like, she was just astronomically imaginative in every single way, shape, and form, and just bizarre, if that makes any sense. Rest her soul. She's the one that got killed, hit by a car. And so, so a lot of what she used to say at the time, before I started believing all of this, before I started putting it all together, when she was alive, I unfortunately disregarded a lot of what she said as just made up horse trash, if that.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible for it, obviously. But looking back on a lot of things that she said, like, she was obviously abducted several times, like, no matter what. So, and then started my false memories is what I'll say. Okay. And so here we go. We lived in another apartment building, which was on a hill, okay, at the bottom of the hill. And so the driveway was a long hill, which had a speed bump at the bottom of the hill to, prevent people from flying around the parking lot. So one day, if you remember back in the day, BMX bicycles, they have a foam seat. But back in the day, if you took the foam seat off, there was just a metal seat. There wasn't like the frame now that there is. There was just a whole like sheet metal seat. And so if you're an impoverished kid from the ghetto or whatever, you basically just have this metal seat like from the get-go. And so we have this old rusty BMX, and we're just zipping down this hill left and right. And I hit the hill. I zipped down the hill, and I hit the speed bump at the bottom, and how do I say this as PG as possible? I tear my junk open.
Oh my gosh!
And
Lord have mercy.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And go to the hospital and have an emergency operation on my area.
Oh.
And
Ouch.
And years later still have the jagged, horrific scar from it, and go to ask my mother about it, and that never happened. She's not like insane or crazy or old like that. She doesn't have dementia. She knows dates, and she's hard on memories. Like she will correct you on everything. This never happened. So here's another scar that I have, which is unexplainable. I have again, trying to be PG, I have a circumcision scar in the shape of what we believe is Orion's belt. I've never been circumcised. I was never circumcised.
Right. That's very bizarre.
Yeah, and so it's really strange. And I'm trying to be as like I said, as clean as PG as possible. But
Sure.
these groinal things kept continuously happening to me, specifically in that area.
Hmm.
I've had more surgeries for hernias, for I'm the $6 million man down there. If that makes sense, I swear I'm more robot than human below the waist. If that makes any sense, like I can feel right now screws and hinges pressing through my skin. Seriously,
Ouch.
no joke at all.
Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
And I have I got scars for days. But 90% of these surgeries didn't happen. My mother, I tell her, remember my first hernia? Fell out of the tree in the backyard. The smell of apricots, right? Out of the same house. And no, you did not. That never happened. You never had a hernia when you were a kid. Why do I have these scars all over me and have specific memories of going to these hospitals? But when I recount like the doctor's face or anything like that, I can't make it out at all, which you would assume that I would, because going to surgery as a kid is a terrifying experience.
Right.
Right.
So,
That's pretty interesting what you because some things I've noticed. I just want to comment, if you don't mind, if I'm for just a moment. And I'll let you follow up with this if you want to jump in after this. But like in my 20 years of paranormal research, investigative research, and from my own personal experiences that I've had throughout my life, I've had a lot of bizarre experiences as long as I can remember. But at any rate, one thing that one conclusion I've definitively, I haven't come to very many conclusions about anything, but one conclusion I have come to is, it is undeniable to me at this point, is that there's some kind of correlation between various different types of paranormal phenomenon. And when I say paranormal, I use that as a blanket term that includes, UFOs, hauntings, psychic phenomenon, parapsychological phenomenon, just what sometimes cryptids. I mean, and there's lots of instances where people, for example, have had close encounters of the first or second kind, and then there's a Bigfoot sighting nearby, or even in the same very general area. Another example, and this has been very common, you mentioned earlier things about ghosts and demons. Well, people do have apparitional sightings with these entities sometimes. And as far as people have reported seeing dead relatives or friends that are passed away and moved on. People have had other types of bizarre paranormal experiences that are very akin to demonology, which I've studied at some degree. I think in some cases we might be dealing with like some kind of deceptive diabolical entity of some kind. In some cases, I think that we're dealing with multiple different types of entities. I believe that there's a very strong possibility. I have good reason to believe that in some of these entities, they are out to do us harm, and there are entities out there that are out to do us harm. That some of these entities are conspiring with other types of entities like fallen angels. And I know it might sound like an outrageous claim, but at the end of the day, there is some evidence to support this. And I just wanted to comment on that. And what are your thoughts?
So I think that there's a spectrum with vibration, and how we rate vibration as positive, or medium area, or far to the other side of negative. And whether it's an ET, or what we're interpreting as a demon, or lost soul, or earthly soul, whatever it is, yeah, they can definitely exist on one part of the spectrum or another. But I think at the root, for me, at the root of it has been just being able to interpret the energy, and that's really, I guess, how I'm able to, read a situation. I've never had anything extreme happen. I mean, I've had things happen that I wasn't really able to interpret properly, and because I'm empathic, it took some time for me to identify if whether it was my feelings or the other person's feelings, because or their reality, because I would pick up things from other people and I thought it was me, and it wasn't my stuff, and I just say that to say that it could go either way, and whatever we're adding to it, our religious backgrounds and beliefs and things like that, I think that can also play a part in how we're interpreting the paranormal. But for me, it's always been this spectrum of is this an ET? Okay, what part of the spectrum is it on? And then I kind of just deal with it that way. But yeah, that's pretty much how I've looked at it, just because I haven't really been in a religious circle. So I look at it objectively from an energetic perspective, because I think at the bottom of it all, it's all energy anyway. That's what we are anyway, is
Yeah.
energy. And
Well,
it's
the interesting thing about what you just said, is it's 100% compatible with, for example, my religious beliefs, because I embrace science and spirituality. I think they're synonymous with one another. I believe in my belief is God, creator, or my God, created science for us, for mankind, and put together an incredible physical matrix. But at any rate, the point is this. In creation, I believe that every being, every object, all matter vibrates. Both anything, even non-physical entities. I think that they all give out vibrations. I think they all everything vibrates. I think that's how existence operates. It's one of the crucial parts of existence. I believe that it's just like radio stations on your radio dial. I think that when we're tuning into these frequencies, I think we're actually sending communication through other vibrational frequencies. And I believe, and Jared, I want to hear your opinion on my statement as far as having a lot of these different types of phenomenon correlate. Have you seen that yourself in any degree?
You mean like separate, like aliens, ghosts, separate, da 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 da?
Or poltergeist activity, or any type of parapsychological phenomenon, or other types of high strangeness associated with any of these alien or UFO encounters?
So it's hard to nail it, but I believe that. Okay, so I'll start it out like this. Like aliens never even crossed my mind at all. I just thought it was all ghosts or demons or this or that, the other, until I got old enough to rationalize things and not. So I've never put religion as the reason for anything, because I don't really know much about religion. However, the way that the religious history is always pointed out, obviously we have ancient aliens and stuff like that, which kind of correlates aliens to being gods and all of this and that and the other. Like, for example, more people believe in evolution from aliens than actually have the theory of evolution right now. You know what I mean? And so there are people who just cut themselves off to it and just will not believe it. Like, for example, I relate it to this. Everybody swore that UFOs were not real, and that everybody who was reporting them was lying or trying to get attention. And then the government just releases front page news that nobody batted an eye at, that says, yeah, UFOs are real. We've been watching, we got all these tapes and everything. I say all that to say this. If you're not going to want to experience anything, you're definitely going to call it something else. But just like with putting religion as a reason for it, or a religion-based interpretation of it, it's the same thing. If you're not, you're going to keep calling it something else until you can rationalize with it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it can morph into other things too. Like if you're reading it from a certain perspective, it's almost like you could create it. You can create something within itself. It's almost like the mandrake, right? If there's something that doesn't have life, and you're bringing
a tulpa.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
A tulpa, or a thought form.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Right. But it so I think at the simplest form, that's that's kind of what it is, whether it's a ghost, a poltergeist, or that's because I think that I think our minds are so powerful that even when we're experiencing something that's actual, that we can actually we can add to it in ways that can be really disruptive and distractive if we're not careful. So I think it's really beneficial when we're experiencing things to really just kind of observe as much as we can and kind of deal with it objectively. But when we add to it, it could take on a whole other definition, and so things could be left out, or things may be, you know, overly amplified, and that could actually get in the way of a perception as well, of a I don't know. I think you guys know what I'm saying. But,
Yeah, I get you.
it's a good point
to
bring up. It's a good point to bring up. I'm glad you brought that up, Mark.
I go, yeah, absolutely. Because see, the way I like to operate, I look at things from both, like I said, from both a science and a spiritual point of view, because I believe that they're synonymous with one another. But what at the end of the day, I go where the data takes me. I've been challenged by some of this data. It's been challenging for me,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, I've never run across any data that I couldn't rationalize that would, to where it'd be compatible with my religious beliefs and my spiritual beliefs. And I still to this day have yet to find something that challenges me to where I can't rationalize it in that perspective. Very cool.
Yeah, and I did have a question for you, Jared, as well.
Sure.
When you talked about, you said your mom was just like, do you think her thing was missing time, or she was just outright just denying it? Like, okay, so these experiences, you remember having surgeries at actual hospitals, right?
Well,
Like local hospitals. So
it was not any hospital that I had ever been to. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, so this was part of your taken experience then.
Yes, I think that's what was when they had that's when I was abducted, I believe. And
they kept putting you in these scenarios so where you were injuring your groin area, which is, I wonder what that's about. That's interesting. I'm going to think about that and try to figure out what that might have been about.
My thoughts on that is the memories that I have are not actual memories. I think that I was given them. And so these events, right? Like my mom straight tells me, like, that did not happen. I think they literally did not happen. I think that's what was put in my head to cover up for any questions I may have, because and I wonder why it's that specific area, because like I've never broken a bone, I've never done anything else but injure, supposedly injure that area. You see.
Okay. So they implanted memories, and you said that you can feel that there's things like there's inorganic material in your body.
Definitely. So I was in a small car accident in Reno, Nevada, and I had to come back to Utah. And so coming back to Utah, it wasn't even anything. But when I went to go get X-rayed, coming back to Utah, the guy says, "When did you swallow those markers?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You have X-ray markers inside of you, I think." And I was like, "The hell's going on here?" And just that was the most bizarre thing ever. And then also, so Ogden Regional Hospital here, where a lot of shady stuff has ever went down, intentionally doesn't keep your records for some reason. Like I had a lung disease that was terrifying, and went back in a few years later and said, "Oh, can you guys see what I came in for last time?" And they were just like, "No, doesn't say anything, just says lungs for some reason." I was like, "That's so bizarre. Why would they not keep a record of that?" Anyway, that's all beside the point. Anyway.
I wonder if it's because they have a high incidence of people. I'm wondering if there's a high incidence of people who are being taken there, and that's part of how they're covering up things. Because if you can't prove that you have something in you because there's no records. I mean, I kind of had the same thing. My blood type was switched around, and I think it was to protect me, honestly. but that's a longer story. But when you say that, I really do believe a lot of these hospitals and doctors and some of these organizations are in league with helping to conceal the evidence. For one, there being the other here, there being people here who aren't human, and two, the victims and experiencers of these events that actually have physical evidence. I mean, if it wasn't for people taking pictures or having a sympathetic provider that was able to slip them the imaging slides for their own personal records, I mean, just imagine how much proof there would be. And that area is not. I mean, there's a lot that goes on out there. I mean, not too long ago, you guys had hundreds of homeless people disappear.
Oh yeah,
disappear.
Oh my God!
And one of them said something. One of these homeless men were interviewed, and they said that they barely got out of some underground tunnel with their life, that they were being experimented on, and they were rounding up these homeless people and killing them and using them in these experiments that were happening underground. And so yeah, there's a lot going on out there. There's
Sounds
a lot
like the Nazi
too.
party.
I was going to sorry, go. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just commenting. It sounds like the Nazi party. It sounds like the horrible things that they did.
I was going to get into the fact that Ogden is notorious for having underground tunnels, and notoriously the city says that they're not there, but I've been in them millions of times. We have pictures of them. That's exactly what. Oh my God, that ties into all of this. The underground tunnels is part of it. It has to.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm convinced that they lead to ancient, older bases that have always been underground. I mean, there's. I was going to do a video on this. There's an ancient base in Romania, the Busegi base. It's so advanced that they can't even figure out how to get in it. This thing is thousands of years old. It's an advanced underground base, and they're all over the place. They're all over this country. That's what the military built on too. Were a lot of these older ones, and I've been in some of them, but they're all over the world. So these tunnels go somewhere. They're steeped off from somewhere.
I actually know some about that. I actually know some things about what you're talking about and I can't talk about it, of course, but I know some Army installations I've been on, either been stationed on or been there for a brief tour or whatever, a training tour or whatever. And I know darn well there's some very elaborate underground installations underneath some of these military bases.
Here in sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jared. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, so interesting point to make here real quick. So here in Ogden, there's the 12th Street is like the main street. If you go directly west on 12th Street, you will hit a military fence that closes it off. But if you can find a route beyond that, what is beyond that is what's called Willard Bay. Inside of Willard Bay is what's called Antelope Island, where these tunnels supposedly lead to. Antelope Island was where Mexico was originated, exactly where it was originated as per the Aztecs and Incas and all of that. It's actually the place. You cannot, if you go, you can go to Antelope Island, and it's famous for having buffalo there. So people go there, they drive through, they feed the buffalo, whatever, tourists like that. But half of the island right now to this day, and always has been, always will be, is blocked off with military fences and stuff like that. And there's actual military personnel protecting this half of the island where Mexico was originated, and the Incas and the Aztecs used to meet, blah, 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 all of that.
Yeah, wow. That's interesting.
That's insane.
Why have all of that protection if there's nothing significant there? That's like the place in Arizona where all of that ancient artifacts are from. They say it's from Egypt, but I think Egypt was really here because we've got pyramids and mounds all over this country, all up and down the Mississippi that were either destroyed or or not recognized as what they were. The mound builders, all of these, especially centering in the Four Corners area, there's a lot that went on out there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's a lot of hidden history that we've been lied to. And so for this specific area in Arizona where no one is allowed to go, you can't even fly over it. You can't, and down there they've got all these artifacts, these caverns with all of this Egyptian
I've heard of that.
And,
I have heard about that. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place that we know about, where they've done like the discovery shows, and then there's the other place where it's a no-fly zone. You can't get anywhere near it, and it's like, why? So, I mean, there's so much more that we're walking on, like everything that's underneath.
Oh, yeah.
All these ancient bases and all these ancient civilizations, advanced civilizations that were here. We're totally being lied to about everything. There's so many lies being told about the history, but it's going to start to reveal itself. When we start having these mudslides and all these other things, we're going to see columns. We're going to see amazing things from the civilizations that were covered up under the mud and all of that stuff. So,
we're approaching the bottom of the bottom of the or the top of the hour. Excuse me. What I want to do for Jared. Jared, before we close this out, I'd like to know a couple things. I'd like you to make some final comments, whatever's on your heart and mind to talk about real quick, just for a few moments. And also, do you have a website? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have anything like that going that we can all check out?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hope you guys have me back, because that's not even a tenth of the whole story. I haven't even gotten into most of the good stuff. Anyway, I wanted to say.
Well, I'll bring you back on in a couple months, so I'll schedule it with you later.
Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to thank you both. Oh my God, tremendously. You have no idea how much this means to me. Like I said, I've been walking around sounding like a crazy person for years and not being able to make sense of any of it. And just the fact that meeting you, Mark, was just, slim.
Yeah, maybe your wife can join it. Maybe if your wife feels comfortable, she could join the conversation and talk about some of your experience. Or your fiance? Is it your fiance? Yeah. Should tell her, give her, extend an open invitation or anybody in your family who would like to talk about their experiences with you. You have an open invitation.
I appreciate that. And you said websites, right? So I got YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram and TikTok nowadays, But you can find me under Jared Palmer or Opie Taylor on anything. But it's Opie Taylor, OPEY space TAILOR. It's different from the Ron Howard thing, copyright infringement almost. Everything. That's pretty much. Thank you guys so much. Oh my God, I'm speechless. I wish I had more articulate way to say any of this. Just thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been our pleasure.
Jared.
What's your final thoughts on before we will definitely come back. Can you give us a final just a final thought on what this means, where this is steering your life? What direction is this phenomenon, all these phenomenons, psychic phenomenon, the UFOs and paranormal stuff? To where is it all driving you? What direction do you think it's taking you in your life?
Honestly, it's hard to make it not an obsession, but it does. There's an inspiration from it with everything that I do. It's the reason I'm an actor, the reason I'm a writer, all this other stuff, the reason I've done everything. And when I was younger, I just thought I had like mental problems, to be honest with you, ADHD or something. But now, as an adult, it's just such a relief finally to know that I'm not, crazy. Not saying that people with mental disabilities are crazy by any means at all. I just, that I'm not just some rambling person who doesn't know what I'm talking about. And it's just it's such a better feeling now. I don't know. It's like finding God for the first time. It feels like, I don't know. It's just amazing,
Wow.
Yeah, you're not alone. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, enlightenment. It sounds like you're on a path to enlightenment, and I really appreciate Jared, you being with us today. And thank you for filling in for Jake and Greg at the last minute today. You guys have both been on fire, and I hope this is the start of many more research conversations together. And you guys are having you're now our friends of the Project Stargate, and we're glad to have you. And once you come here, your first time you're a guest, and then the next time you're family. So that's how we like to roll in this research project. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
Yeah. We'll do this again sometime soon. I have a couple people in mind to bring into another. Well, we could talk about some of these government programs in more length. And also, Jared, like I said, if you have your fiance or any other family members that'd like to come back and talk, if they feel comfortable, extend my invitation to them, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you guys so much. It was such a pleasure meeting you, She, and you, Mark. Amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
All right.
You as well, Jared. Take care.
You too.
You're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. We hope you enjoyed this program. And if you did, please hit the like and subscribe button. And we will be able to bring you more content. And for all of you, please stay safe, love your neighbor, and have a blessed day.